Hi, I'm going to go through the test from last week so that you can see what answers I would have given and how I think about this. First thing is your name. Please choose one and put it on everything. So use either your original name or your nickname, but just put the same thing on everything. That would be very helpful to me. So how long have you been studying English? Now, I can answer that in two different tenses. I can answer it in the present perfect simple, which is I have studied English most of my life, is the present perfect, or I could use the present perfect continuous, which is what I used in the question. I have been studying English for 5 years. So those are both fine. There are other choices, like you could use simple past, or some past perfect. I had never studied at all before I came here. Would still be an answer to that question, but you need to tell me what verb tense you used. So I have studied is present perfect. I have been studying is present perfect continuous. Now, a few of you used I have been studied, even after we talked about that in class. I have been studied means somebody studied you, and that is not probably what you mean unless you have been studied. That would be passive present perfect. That would be present perfect still. But it's not likely that most of you have been studied, had someone study you. That's probably not right. What does your father never do? I put that on because I want you to use your S verbs. My father never smokes. Although you could answer, if your father has passed away already, as mine has, you could say my father never smoked. And either way, you need to say what verb tense you used. So my father never smoked is simple past. My father never smokes with an S is present simple present. So you had some options of how to answer that. You did have to answer that question, but you had some options of how to answer that. But you needed to say which verb tense you used. What are you going to do after this class? Are you going to is simple future. Are you going to followed by a base form verb is simple future. So if your answer is I'm going to study my papers again, that would be simple future. However, some of you used the present continuous, which we do a lot. We absolutely do that. I'm going to the market. I'm going to the market. Then the verb is go. In this case, the verb is go. It's an ing verb, so it's a progressive. I'm going is present progressive, present continuous. Use progressive or continuous. They're the same thing. Use which one is easier to spell. Continuous is a little hard to spell. So I'm going to the market. To the market is a place that you're going. That's a prepositional phrase. That's not a future tense verb. I'm going to study. Study is then your verb. Study is your verb. It's in base form with I'm going to as the auxiliary. I'll post something about that difference again, but I wrote it on quite a few of your papers. What were you doing at 2:15? Almost everybody got that one correct. That is, what were you doing? I was making lunch. What verb tense did you use? That was, it's a progressive, right? Because you have the ing verb, so it has to be a progressive, and was is in past, so it's past progressive. Past progressive. In the next section, we have drive, drove, driven, bite, bit, bitten, speak, spoke, spoken, write, wrote, written, wear, wore, worn, hide, hid, hidden, ride, rode, ridden, freeze, froze, frozen, light, lit, lit, choose, chose, chosen, break, broke, broken, buy, bought, bought, study, studied, studied, be, was or were, been, and fall, fell, fallen. Now, most of you did pretty well on that. Some of you really don't know your participles yet. If you don't, you must study those. You cannot do passive voice if you don't have your past participles, because every main verb is in past participle in passive voice. So you have to get those passive voice, those past participles down before you can do passive voice. The ones people had the most trouble with were light. I light the stove, I light a cigarette. And past tense, I lit the stove, I lit the cigarette. Past participle, I have lit the stove, it is warming up, I have lit many cigarettes. Not true, I don't smoke. Choose, chose, chosen. People had trouble with the spelling there. You really need to pay attention to that spelling. Break, broke, broken. Some of you used the car brake, B-R-A-K-E, which is to stop your car, as opposed to break, B-R-E-A-K, which is to break a pencil, break your glasses, break your phone. They have different past tense. So break, broke, broken is the break, as braked and braked. That verb, to stop your car, break, the past tense is a regular verb. Buy, bought, bought. A couple of people thought it was bring. Bring starts with a B-R, so that's brought, brought. Bring, brought, brought. Buy, bought, bought. Pay attention to just those first sounds. Study does not have a Y in it. Be. Be is the base form. Be is the base form. Not am, is, are. Is not the base form. For example, if you have to use a base form, for example, after modals, you use a base form. Must be. You can't use must are, must is. No, it's must be. Be is the base form. It's the only verb in English that has 3 present tenses. It's the only verb in English that has 2 past tenses, was and were. He was, I was, you were, they were. All the other verbs, there's 1 past. I chose, he chose, she chose, they chose. Doesn't matter who it is, there's only that 1 past tense. Be is the only verb that has 2 past tenses. With fall, a few of you thought it was feel. Feel is felt. Feel, felt, felt. Fall, fell, fallen. If you don't know your participles, please, please, please study them, because you really need to know those and you need to be able to spell them correctly. Move this back up. Down to the next piece. Okay, so the next piece, it says, do not change the time. Most of you did that, but a couple of you changed the time. Don't change the time. I had a headache yesterday. I had. This is just 1 verb, no auxiliary, simple past. Some of you said past perfect. Past perfect would be I had had. I had gotten. Right? Past perfect is have as an auxiliary with a main verb in past participle. This is just 1 verb, had. Simple past. Now the negative in the question, it should be I didn't have and did you have. Have is just a regular verb you use I worked, I didn't work. I ran, I didn't run. I had, I didn't have. In older style English, and possibly in some British books still, it would say, I hadn't a headache. And so I gave you half credit if you did that. I don't like it, because that is not what we use in modern American English. That's what my grandmother may have used that, but it's really not what we use today. Did you have, if you said, had you a headache, I gave you half credit for those. Simple present, she doesn't fix her own car. She doesn't fix. You have the do. In simple past, simple present, you have the do only in the negative and the question. No do in the statement. So she fixes her own car. She fixes her own car. That there is no do in that. There's a do in the negative. She doesn't fix her own car. And there's a do in the question. Does she fix her own car? Have you broken that glass? The verb tense. You have the verb. The main verb is in past participle form, so it's probably going to be a perfect tense. And the have auxiliary is in present, so it's present perfect. Present perfect. Have you broken? To make the statement, you just switch. In the question, have you? Statement, you have. Question, have you? Statement, you have. Just switch those. Simple past and simple present, you have to add do. But all the other verb tenses, you just switch them. So you have broken that glass. Now some of you changed to I here, which is absolutely fine. It's a little bit hard with the I and you in questions. So you have broken, I have broken, I don't care, those are fine. And you or I don't care, haven't broken that glass. Some teachers have a big opinion about the I, you questions, but I don't have a big opinion about that. Next one, I am going to stay home. I am going to is simple future when it's followed by a base form verb. The base form verb after I'm going to, that is simple future. That is not present progressive. I explained that above. So that is simple future. The negative goes on the auxiliary. The first word of the auxiliary is am. So I'm not going to stay home. There's no word I amn't. All the other ones you can do is, isn't, are, aren't, were, weren't, was, wasn't. All the other ones you can put the NT on it, but amn't you can't do that. So it's I'm not going to stay home. And when you make the question, you put, again, one word in front of the subject. So am I or are you going to stay home? If you didn't switch from the I and you again, I'm not going to take off for that. She isn't listening. So you have the verb, the main verb is in ing form, so it has to be a progressive. And is in present, so it has to be present progressive. She isn't listening. She is listening. You don't need to change anything except take the NT off of the auxiliary. In the question, switch the order. Is she listening? Don't make negative questions. Negative questions are much more complicated and give an implication that you know an answer. You have an opinion about the answer. Your kids were fighting yesterday. Almost all of you got that one. Again, you have the ing verb, so it's a progressive. And the were is in past, so that means it's past progressive. The is listening, present progressive, were fighting, past progressive. It's the be that tells the time in progressive. So the negative, your kids weren't fighting. And the question, again, just switch the order. You have, were your kids fighting? All right, so let's go down to the next section. The singular plural, correct form of the verb, ride. The verb is ride. It says write only that verb and nothing else. I still don't understand quite why that's such a difficult instruction, but apparently it is. So I ride is first person. There's no S on first person. It's only on third person. You ride is second person. There's no S on second person. It's only on third person. My son rides. Yes, that's singular third person. You have the S. The students ride. That's third person plural. No S. A girl rides. That's singular. You have an S. Every one is singular. Every one. Every day. Every time. Every person. Every one. That's singular. Every is singular. I know it feels plural, but it's singular. So it takes a singular verb. Every day is singular. People is plural. One person, three people. People is plural. So no S. The S is for singular. And Jill is one person, and that is singular. She is singular. I am riding. We have be plus ing. Now, some of you use the passive, I am ridden, which is possible. If you have small children, you may be ridden. I am ridden means somebody rides you. They ride me, which is possible if you have small children again. You were riding, again, should be plus ing. If you did passive, I accepted that. My son has ridden, that's have plus the past participle. The students can ride, modals plus base form, 100% modals plus base form. That guy doesn't ride, do plus base form. Again, 100% do plus base form. Must is another modal. So again, we have modal plus base form. We have no choices on those. That's 100% modals and do plus base form. Are riding would be be plus ing. And didn't ride is do plus base form. So your job on this side was simple present. Tell me whether it's singular or plural. And your job on this side was to decide what form of verb after what auxiliary. All right. Now the word order. With the word order, the first thing you have to decide is what's the verb and what's the subject. So the verb, let's say my brother is the subject, and gone is the verb, but gone is a past participle. So gone with a past participle can either be gone, so it's passive, or had gone, so it's past perfect. And we don't have a be, we do have a had. So had gone. Had gone where? Because gone doesn't take a direct object, it takes a place. To Mexico. Had gone to Mexico. So past perfect, then we have before, because past perfect is past of past, right? So we need a simple past verb. Do we have a simple past verb? Yes, we do. We have went as the simple past verb. I went with him. Now, do we have any time words here? We have time words. Week. Next week, last week, it's last week. Now, we have a few more things here. So, my older brother. We have not had not gone. You can't say I not went, right? You have to have an auxiliary. So that not has to go with the had. The had has to go with the gone. Had not gone to Mexico before I went with him last week. You could do that in the other order. And you could say I had not gone before my older brother, but the with him has to be I with him, right? So my older brother with him, unless there's a third person involved, which I guess is possible. But you want to start with the subject and verb. Start with finding the subject and the verb. Okay, so let's do that again here. We're going to find the subject and the verb. So the subject is my father, and the verb is running. So running is an ing verb, so we have to have a be before it. So we have was, okay, was running. Running does not take a direct object, so running where? Down the street. Time goes last. Do we have time? Yeah, we have time this morning. We have a WH word here, why. So the why goes on the beginning, why. And if we have a question, then that auxiliary has to go in front of the subject. Why was my father running down the street this morning? Number 3, we'll start with the subject. Let's see, we have a you. Your verb is lost, and your verb is lost what? Lost your phone. So you lost your phone. Time would be so far. We have a question, so let's see if we have a question word. We have question words, how many times? Okay, so that's our question words. How many times? But if it's a question, then we need an auxiliary. So how many times have you lost your phone so far? Right, start from the verb. Start from the verb, find the subject, find the object, find the question words. Start from the verb. That's usually the best thing, to find the subject or the object. Start from the verb, and that will inform you. Now, the last thing here about how to return your papers. The papers, there are still some in a box outside of room 413 in the tower at Laney College, 4th floor, 413. It's at the end of the hall. And I put those folders with a name on each folder, with it clasped and closed so nobody else sees them. So please go get them before you watch this video, hopefully. So that you can go through your test and see your answers and learn from your mistakes. Some of you gave me teachers' names. I've given those papers to those teachers, so please ask them. If you gave me a teacher's name, ask them if they have it. A couple of them said, well, I just don't remember. It's in my box still, so you can walk back to their office with them and pick it up or something. And let me know if they really don't want to do it that way, then we can use an envelope next time. So thank you and good luck.